When I'm clocking in the morning, I look, I'm like, wow, it's pretty empty in here.
They're calling it the summer slump. A lot of people not coming to Las Vegas because it's too expensive.
It's been going down a lot. Yeah, you can really see it, and in our pocket, it's feeling it.
There's a paradox happening in Las Vegas right now. The very people who sweated to build the glitz and glamour that the world associates with Vegas can no longer afford to live in the city they helped create. Construction workers, hotel staff, waiters, the workforce that keeps this giant entertainment machine running, are now being pushed to the sidelines. Rent prices have skyrocketed, wages haven't kept up, and living expenses are piling up. They could see the neon lights every night, but their dream of a big win is now just a night's sleep in old cars parked in a lot or a cramped room in the suburbs. This story not only highlights income and cost inequality, but also reflects a deep contradiction. A city built on the dreams of the working class, yet they themselves are excluded from that dream. In this video, we'll unpack the paradox of why the construction workers who once helped shape Vegas are now unable to live in the city they built. When the smallest but most important cogs can no longer hold up, will the Vegas machine still be able to function as before? Let's find the answer right now. When was the last time you bought something in Vegas for its true value? Perhaps it's hard to remember, because today everything here is inflated to an unbelievable degree. Imagine this. You take your family to Las Vegas and stop at a casual diner for dinner. But when you receive the bill, you're shocked. The cheeseburger and fries combo that cost just $16.95 4 years ago has now jumped to $30.95, with no new items added and no larger portion. That is the alarming reality of Vegas in 2025. The cheap Vegas version that once defined the city's spirit is now disappearing, taking with it the magic that once attracted millions of visitors. Making a trip here now can make you feel like you're mortgaging your entire future. Perhaps everything gradually began in 2024, when Ocean One Bar and Grill, the iconic restaurant with a $4.99 all-day lunch menu, officially closed. And its disappearance is not just the closure of an inexpensive eatery, but also a warning that the era of a down-to-earth Las Vegas, which once welcomed everyone, from San Diego billionaires to poor workers from Brownsville, is coming to an end. According to official Las Vegas City documents, many major hotels on the Strip are currently charging resort fees ranging from $50 to $55 per night, excluding taxes. With room taxes in the primary gaming corridor at 13.38%, a room advertised for $99 could easily increase to $175 after adding all costs. And that's not even the worst part. A series of bizarre surcharges kept popping up, from a winter pool usage fee, even when the pool was closed, to a boarding pass printing fee, which included 2 newspapers. What seemed like a perfect vacation suddenly became a gamble for your wallet, with an almost certain outcome. Tourists are always the losers. The cause of this situation stems partly from prolonged inflation and tariff pressures, but the core issue lies in the strategy of hotel and casino corporations. They chose to turn every experience, no matter how small, into a new bill. That's how they maximize profits in the context of declining tourist numbers, while simultaneously minimizing what's left for the middle-class tourists who once brought life to this city. There's a shocking truth that few people realize. Las Vegas was never designed to be a home. This city was born to serve tourism, entertainment, and quick spending, not to nurture a long-term community. The infrastructure, schools, and residential areas are all patched together around casinos and resorts, making daily life both expensive and unsustainable. There was a time when Vegas was called the world's cheap goods capital, a place where you could live large even with a small budget. But now, the bottomless greed of the business world has drained the city's working-class soul. And perhaps the consequences we are witnessing today are the price to be paid, belatedly but inevitably. Vegas isn't just changing, it's changing in a way that makes many people feel unwelcome. When cheap Vegas disappears, will the city's appeal still be a shared experience, Or will it only be a stage for the few? And if the common soul has left, who will stay to keep the rhythm of life going here? From here, we move on to a different story. For those in the service industry, work is now no different from a gamble. Some days there are shifts, some weeks are empty, and sometimes there's nothing left at all. In Vegas, luck isn't just found at the gaming tables anymore. It's also right on the time clock, whether your name is still there today or has been crossed out. Hundreds of seasonal workers are living in an on-call state, waiting for a phone call without knowing when they will be able to work. Someone just finished scheduling and then got cut at the last minute. Service industries that were once bustling, from taxi drivers to housekeeping staff, are now also struggling as tourist numbers have plummeted. An Uber driver shared, "I used to be able to do over 30 trips a day, now it's only about 15. And the income is much lower than before."
Can be like 15 rides a day, but the pay it's a lot less than before.
This is not a rare occurrence, but has gradually become a shared pain. For many drivers and other workers, the past summer was the slowest period they had ever seen. Regardless of their profession, they all share the same worry. Will they have enough money next month to feed their families 3 meals a day? The minimum wage in Nevada from July 2024 has been raised to 2 hours, but with unpredictable work hours, this amount won't even cover a fixed monthly budget. It sounds good, but even the housekeeping staff, with an average of 9.86 per hour, according to 2023 data, aren't much better off. Work schedules are cut, tips are inconsistent, making total income resemble a jagged graph that is never stable. In the construction industry, modern technology and machinery are gradually replacing human labor. Initially, just support, but over time, it became replacement. The number of manual labor jobs decreased, leading to fierce competition among workers and pushing wages down. The cost of living is still rising, rent is still due, only wages are constantly falling out of my wallet like autumn leaves. The final firewall is the union. Some recent agreements, such as at the Cosmopolitan or Virgin, have helped to secure record wage increases and tighten daily room cleaning quotas, aiming to partially stabilize the uncertainty. But reality is still beyond control. Workers still have to live in a precarious state, as if walking on a tightrope. Perhaps Vegas forgot one thing. This city lives on service. If the backstage, the silent working hands, can no longer maintain their rhythm, then the glittering stage lights out there will eventually fade into darkness. When even meals become a gamble during work hours, how many people would dare bet their entire lives in Vegas? And if a city can't guarantee the rhythm of backstage life, who will keep the service machine running smoothly? Decades ago, when magnificent casinos were springing up like mushrooms, Vegas was not only known as the entertainment capital, but also as a place where workers and their families could find affordable housing. But by 2025, the reality had completely reversed. The median rent in Las Vegas is currently around $1,380 per month. Compared to the peak inflation in 2024, this figure has cooled down somewhat, but for workers with unstable incomes, it remains an unbearable burden. According to HUD data on housing for the period 2025-2029, up to 26% of renters in Las Vegas fall into the severe cost burden category, meaning they have to spend at least half of their income just to pay rent. When a fixed cost consumes most of a person's salary, what's left for food, healthcare, or savings is almost nothing. The story of a 55-year-old construction worker who helped build the Bellagio Hotel has become a heartbreaking testament. He said that after many years working on the Strip, he believed he would always have a place in this city. However, as rent continued to skyrocket, he was forced to move to Arizona, leaving behind the place he had called home his entire life just to find affordable housing. Facing the gleaming skyscrapers, there are many workers like him who are packing up their belongings, leaving the city to wealthy residents from elsewhere. The most obvious contrast is an abandoned building just a few steps from the newly opened luxury leasing area. On one side is a luxury apartment with a dazzling billboard, and on the other are empty windows covered in dust and bearing the marks of families who once lived there. It's not just a disparity in living space, but a testament to a city being rewritten solely to serve the wealthy. The causes of this situation come from many directions. The supply of affordable housing is increasing too slowly compared to demand. Investment capital is heavily concentrated in resort real estate and high-end projects, while high interest rates further increase the cost of home ownership or investment. Workers, who are already struggling to cope, are being pushed further and further away from the center. Nevertheless, there are still small-scale efforts to compensate. Some non-profit organizations and internal company support programs have begun offering housing benefits, emergency rental assistance, or financial counseling for working families. But the scale is still limited and not enough to change the situation. These piecemeal solutions are like a few drops of water falling into a scorching desert. The dream of homeownership in Las Vegas, once an attainable symbol, has now been transformed into a luxury item. When housing becomes an asset for speculation instead of a place to live, ordinary people are forced to leave the very place they helped build. And a heartbreaking question arises. When children grow up in car trunks instead of homes, what will we tell them about the American dream? And then, what will happen when the entire city plan is rewritten, not to serve the majority, but exclusively for the wealthy? The map of Las Vegas is still the same, but the right to live there has changed. A brief statement, but it reflects the silent shift in power taking place in this desert city. While Vegas was once known as a place for all walks of life, from middle-class families seeking an affordable vacation to workers dreaming of a simple home, restructuring money is now flowing in a completely different direction. Super expensive entertainment projects, high-end residential areas, and luxury shopping complexes became the focal point of the planning. Vegas is formally reinventing itself to become a luxury consumer hub, and only for them. Market figures show a clear adjustment. In August 2025, the number of visitors to the city decreased by 6.7% compared to the same period last year. The average room rate decreased to 162.38, a 7.4% drop. Room occupancy was only 77.5%, 3.7 points lower than the same period in 2024. This is a sign that Vegas is no longer maintaining the peak tourism levels of the previous year and is being redefined to attract a smaller but more willing to spend segment. For the working class, the price to pay is becoming increasingly heavy. As high-end projects take center stage, local residents are forced to migrate further out, seeking housing in the suburbs. But the wider the travel radius, the greater the travel cost. Time for childcare, medical expenses, and even community connections are all eroded. The sight of the limousine gliding past the row of tents by the roadside became an iconic image of two parallel worlds, face to face, yet never able to touch. A city ablaze with lights in front, but behind lies the darkness of the people who once built it. The management story here also presents a dilemma. The city government prioritized revenue from tourism and entertainment over improving the welfare of local residents. This is a short-term profitable strategy, but in the long run, it creates an increasingly unbridgeable gap between the local community and the tourism economic engine. The ripple effect is also starting to become apparent. When local residents can no longer cope, the service labor supply is disrupted. To fill the gap, businesses have to import labor from elsewhere, leading to higher operating costs. And finally, that cost is passed back onto the tourists' bills. A vicious cycle that the city can hardly sustain for long. Forecasts indicate that without adjustments to housing and labor policies, Las Vegas risks becoming a city of tourists, losing residents. A vibrant destination for visitors, but empty when it comes to a long-term community. And that is the paradox. How sustainable can a city's prosperity be if the very people who built it are deprived of their place? Some non-profit organizations have begun to intervene, implementing housing assistance programs or providing financial counseling services to working families. This is an initial solution, although limited in scope, but at least it shows that there are small efforts being made to retain some of the community connection between Vegas and the people who once built it. Can a city truly retain visitors long-term if its very sense of community has been depleted? When all that's left are show tickets, stage lights, and lavish performances, will anyone still call it the City of Dreams? On the left is a $1 million stage with dazzling lights and echoing music. To the right is an endless row of tents where thousands of people are crammed together in the darkness. Vegas exists as a divided picture, both glamorous and exposing the stark reality of inequality. According to official statistics, Clark County recorded 7,906 homeless individuals, a 20% increase from the previous year. These numbers are not just dry data, but a warning sign showing how the bright lights of the Strip are increasingly at odds with the reality on the streets. On one street, 3 currents coexisted with almost no interaction. The police were removing the tent camps, tourists were passing by looking for fun, and people had nowhere else to go. Public space is stratified, where the official Vegas is only for the masses who come to spend money, while the rest are relegated to dark corners out of sight. Amidst that painting are broken destinies. A 60-year-old man who used to be a construction worker now lives in an old tent near Fremont Street. He recounted briefly, "I used to build hotels, but now I have no address." Words like cuts, revealing the cruel irony of the people who built the foundation of Vegas being excluded from the very city they built. The root causes are not difficult to point out. Housing costs are skyrocketing beyond reach, jobs are precarious, and healthcare and transportation expenses are rising simultaneously. These synchronized burdens cause many families to plummet quickly, going from having a stable roof over their heads to being homeless in just a few months. Some other places have tested different models. In Los Angeles, the Housing First program, which starts with housing and then connects people with healthcare and employment services, has proven effective in reducing homelessness and creating long-term stability. Measure ULA, the tax on high-end real estate transfers, is currently providing sustainable financial resources for these programs. Those lessons suggested a different path for Vegas. The need to build long-term financial mechanisms while also establishing a support service chain, rather than just focusing on clearing the tents from the center. The sight of tents erected under a giant billboard advertising $1 million show has become a silent symbol, like a mirror reflecting how the city's budget and priorities are allocated. When light only shines on a small group, the shadow behind becomes even deeper. The solution cannot come from a single action. But non-profit organizations, such as emergency rental assistance funds and community financial counseling, have shown that it is at least still possible to build a line of defense for families on the brink. This is a small step, but if combined with sustainable urban policies, it could become the foundation for a more equitable Vegas. Can we call this success when the brilliant light only shines on very few people? And by the time darkness reaches the Strip, will it still be possible for the city to turn around? If we were to revisit Las Vegas in 2030, would we even recognize it? That question echoed like a letter to oneself in the future, as the city stood at a decisive crossroads. Based on current inertia, the most likely scenario is a Las Vegas that is reduced to a center for high-income groups and international tourists. Workers, the people who once kept the city running, are being pushed further and further away, and communities are dissolving into fragmented pieces. The social bonds that give Vegas its vitality are gradually fraying. Data is like a cold iceberg. Nevada's minimum wage of 2 hour, though increased, is still too small compared to the rising cost of living. With 26% of renters falling into the severe cost burden category, spending over half their income just to have a roof over their heads. The remainder for healthcare, transportation, and education is almost non-existent. When a day's work is only enough to pay the rent, the American dream in the heart of the desert slowly crumbles. However, there are still narrow doors of hope. California passed AB 1482, which limits rent increases to 5% plus the CPI, with a maximum of 10% per year for many types of housing. Los Angeles, with Measure ULA, a high-end real estate transfer tax, has generated a stable revenue stream to fund housing programs and prevent homelessness. San Francisco is also testing urban financial models to keep workers close to the city center. These are examples showing how policy interventions can reshape the balance of inequality. Vegas's survival depends not on another glamorous project, but on building affordable, multi-story housing, along with transportation and healthcare benefits for frontline workers. Without those foundations, the city will find it difficult to retain the very people who built it. A 58-year-old former housekeeping employee, reflecting the harshness clearly. She wakes up at 4 a.m., takes 3 buses to get to the hotel, works for over 10 hours, and then returns to a shared room for 4 people with 2 bunk beds. Maria's story is not unique, but the reality for thousands of workers trying to maintain their lives in a city that seems to have no place for them. Some social organizations have begun to intervene by providing mental health services, affordable telehealth counseling, and emergency rental assistance to working families. These initiatives, if scaled up, could become a lifeline for the marginalized. But the big question remains. Will Las Vegas become a museum of extravagance, surrounded by a sea of tents? And in the reflecting mirror of Vegas, which lesson will America choose to learn? Continue down the inertia of two worlds, or bravely steer to rebuild community trust? The dazzling Vegas still stands, and the lights still burn brightly every night. But behind that light are thousands of shadows of people who contributed to building the city, who now have to live on the margins, far from the homes they deserve. Their story is not just a glimpse into economic injustice, but also a mirror reflecting an entire society teetering between two worlds. On one side, opulent wealth, and on the other, living under the open sky. Can a city truly prosper when the very hands that poured concrete, installed glass, cleaned rooms, and served to keep it alive can no longer find a place for themselves? And as the gap widens, what will we leave for our children and grandchildren? An American dream to hope for, or a two-tiered Vegas where the lights are only for the few and the darkness devours the majority? If you feel this is a story worth listening to and reflecting on, please share this video. Who knows, maybe a question, a comment, or a click from you is the small piece that will spark a larger conversation. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments section. Will the workers who built Vegas ever get to call this city home again? Please like, subscribe, and share so we can continue to delve into other stories together, where light and darkness are still battling, not just in Vegas, but across America. We do not hold any individual, organization, or government responsible. The sole purpose is to offer a multifaceted perspective on social phenomena, allowing viewers to draw their own conclusions. Any character quotes or illustrations are solely intended to recreate the context and do not represent the entire community. If you or a loved one are facing similar difficulties in life, please reach out to community organizations or formal support resources near you. This video does not replace professional legal, financial, or medical advice.